If you're in the process of applying for permanent residency in the United States or considering to apply in the future, make sure you watch this video to learn about the new COVID-19 vaccination requirement. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while since my last video, I think like 5 months or so. Don't worry, nothing's happened, just got really busy with cases. So in this video, I want to talk about the new COVID-19 vaccination requirement for permanent residency. In order to apply for permanent residency, whether you are completing a medical exam within the United States as part of your adjustment of status process, or you're completing your medical exam outside of the United States in your home country prior to your interview at the embassy, you are required to complete the medical exam and at the time present your immunization record. And if you are missing any vaccinations, any required vaccinations, then the doctor will administer the vaccinations, notate them on your medical exam, and then you'll be eligible for your immigrant visa or your green card from within the United States. Now, before I go into the topic of today's video, I do want to clarify that I am not a doctor. I am not a health professional. I am simply explaining the requirement for immigration purposes with respect to the vaccines. This is not to be construed as a pro or anti-vaccination video whatsoever. It's just to inform you of the vaccination, and whatever you do with the information is up to you. But once again, little disclaimer, this is just to provide you with the information regarding the vaccination requirement. By way of background, under the immigration laws, foreign nationals seeking to obtain an immigrant visa abroad or adjust status to a permanent resident while within the United States are required to receive vaccines. Now, an immigrant visa is a visa for purposes of obtaining permanent residency. This does not apply to those obtaining non-immigrant visas. These vaccines are not required for a visitor's visa, for example, or any other non-immigrant visa. This is for immigrant visas for the purposes of obtaining permanent residency. Here is the current list of required vaccinations: hepatitis A, hepatitis B, influenza, influenza type B, measles, meningococcal, mumps, pneumococcal, pertussis, polio, rotavirus, rubella, tetanus, and varicella. So ultimately, a physician would determine whether it's medically appropriate for you to receive any of those listed vaccines based on your age, medical history, and current medical condition. The CDC just announced that starting October 1st, foreign nationals applying for an immigrant visa or adjusting status will be required to submit proof of their COVID-19 vaccination at the time of their medical exam. So let's talk about how the CDC is allowed to require foreign nationals to obtain the COVID-19 vaccine. The INA, which is the Immigration Nationality Act, has some of the required vaccines listed, but in addition to this, the INA also requires that any vaccine preventable diseases recommended by the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices can be required for an immigrant visa or a green card. Now, I know some of you are wondering, COVID-19 is not necessarily a vaccine preventable disease, because as we know, even if you're vaccinated, you can still contract COVID-19. So how is it that this is considered a vaccine preventable disease and mandated by the CDC as part of the immunizations that you need in order to obtain permanent residence? So according to the CDC's notice on this new requirement, it states specifically, COVID-19 meets the definition of severe acute respiratory syndromes as specified by Presidential Executive Order 13674, issued July 31st, 2014, thus making it a Class A inadmissible condition. A Class A inadmissible condition makes you ultimately ineligible for a visa. So if you have a Class A inadmissible condition, then you're ineligible to obtain permanent residency or get a green card. Let's turn to the executive order, which lets us know how the CDC is able to mandate this vaccination. And it says, severe acute respiratory syndromes, which are diseases that are associated with fever and signs and symptoms of pneumonia or other respiratory illness, are capable of being transmitted from person to person, and that either are causing or have the potential to cause a pandemic, or upon infection are highly likely to cause mortality or serious morbidity if not properly controlled. This subsection does not apply to influenza. This was signed by President Barack Obama in 2014. That definition right there is what the CDC is using to be able to mandate that vaccination at this time, making it a Class A inadmissible condition. Okay, so let's talk about the actual vaccination requirement and what does that entail? When do you have to get it done in order to meet that October 1st deadline? According to the CDC, the applicant must complete the COVID-19 vaccine series and provide documentation of the vaccination to the civil surgeon in person before completion of the medical exam. So what does that mean? If your medical exam is being completed on October 1st or later, then your COVID vaccination requirement must be completed before or at the time of the medical exam, and I'll explain that a little bit. Here's an interesting point. The COVID-19 vaccination requirement will differ from previous requirements, okay, in that the entire vaccine series, either 1 or 2 doses depending on the formulation, must be completed in addition to the other routine required vaccines. So the CDC's notice does have charts as an example based on if you're taking Pfizer, Moderna, Janssen, so on and so forth. Once again, the civil surgeon must confirm in-person documentation that the applicant received all doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, and if applicants want to complete the remaining components of the exam after they're fully vaccinated against COVID-19, civil surgeons should accommodate them. I'm sure that question of booster shots are coming into play because I don't believe that third booster shot, for example, must be completed prior to the medical exam, but I'm not entirely sure, so that's something you need to discuss with the physician, with the civil surgeon. I know that there's a huge gap in between the second dose, for example, and the booster shot has to be 8 months after. Once again, not a physician, not a doctor, don't know exactly the requirement with respect to the third dosage, so definitely consult with your physician regarding that. But it seems to me the initial doses are what's required prior to the examination in order for it to be completed and submitted to USCIS. So what are the waivers applicable to the COVID-19 vaccinations? So first and foremost, not age appropriate. So depending on the type of vaccine, if the applicant is younger than the lowest age limit, then they get a blanket waiver from that vaccination. Another reason to be waived from this requirement is contraindication. So if you have an immediate allergic reaction from the first dose, for example, if you have hypersensitivity signs, that should be documented in the waiver. So the individual received the first dose, received like an allergic reaction or has hypersensitivity, the doctor has to note that on the form and request the waiver that way. If the COVID vaccine is not routinely available in the state in which the medical exam is being completed, then that can be noted as not routinely available. An applicant may request a waiver based on religious or moral convictions. However, this is not a blanket waiver. If an applicant objects based on these grounds, then the doctor will note that in the medical exam. However, it's not a blanket waiver. The applicant must submit a waiver request to USCIS directly, and USCIS will determine if the waiver is granted. So the applicant is responsible for submitting that additional waiver request directly to USCIS at the time of their application, and USCIS will determine whether it's granted or not. If the applicant refuses the COVID-19 vaccine series and does not qualify under any of the waivers that I discussed, then the applicant is considered Class A and inadmissible to the United States. Therefore, you are not eligible to obtain an immigrant visa at the embassy. You're not eligible to adjust status. Your permanent residency application will be denied. Also, one last thing, let's just briefly touch on immunity. Laboratory tests for COVID-19 immunity must not be used for the civil surgeon exam. The applicant is required to receive the vaccine series regardless of evidence of immunity or prior COVID-19 infection. So what do you think about this new requirement for the COVID-19 vaccination in order to obtain permanent residency? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment down below and let me know. If you have any questions regarding this requirement, go ahead and leave them in the comments as well. However, Once again, I am not a medical professional. Specifics regarding the actual COVID-19 vaccine should be directed to a physician, a qualified physician, or a USCIS civil surgeon. But any other immigration-related questions, definitely go ahead and leave them down below. As mentioned previously, I know I took a long break from uploading videos, but I am going to get back into the swing of things and provide you updates regularly. Make sure that you are subscribed, hit that bell button to be notified each and every time I have a new video. Give this video a thumbs up so YouTube knows to spread this news throughout the platform. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.